Final verses of 2013. It's been a long time. We've gone through a lot of movies. A lot of movies that are beloved, a lot of movies that are not so beloved. We've made a lot of controversial decisions.
I didn't even do this on purpose.
Really?
I have visual representation of our very first verses.
Yes, you do.
That was unintentional, actually. I didn't think of that till just now.
That's awesome. Well, this one is one that when I wanted to do this at all, when we talked about doing verses, this was one that came up almost immediately. And pretty much this has all been hinged on if you were going to get one of these for a holiday, so we would have visual representation. As a matter of fact, truth be told, we had a really awesome verses in the beginning of January that we're unable to do right now because of visual representation. But it'll come eventually, don't worry. This one, I like to throw out the cryptic comment. I don't really have one for this one. I thought statistics might work. It works way more for one than it does the other. But maybe it was the fact that all the people that went into the beginning of Facebook, when it was under a different name, obviously, they went into what it would take to do a social networking project like this, and that where statistics might come in, possibly. Or how the company ran. I mean, anything's possible. But this is an Oscar-themed versus, and you have one more month of Oscar-themed versus, which is actually going to end with quite a bang, actually. So, we're going to see what happens, the battle of The Social Network against Moneyball.
Alright, since we're doing Oscar-themed, I guess I should talk about their, how well they did.
Correct.
I'm going to start with Moneyball.
This is like me versus you when it comes to the award season that year. Because I was heavy on Moneyball and you were heavy on The Social Network.
Yeah, they were two separate years.
Yeah.
Moneyball got a lot on... Moneyball didn't win anything.
No.
There were a couple that it could have plausibly won, but it didn't. I don't know all of them off the top of my head. I think there was picture, there was actor, there was supporting actor for Jonah Hill, adapted screenplay.
Screenplay was probably the closest it got.
And editing.
Yeah.
And wasn't Moneyball the movie that got a really surprise sound nomination or something?
I believe so.
Because that was...
It got something really out there.
It was one of the sounds.
Yeah, because those go to such random movies most of the time.
I'll get to that in a second. Obviously with Moneyball, there's always an elephant in the room, but...
Yeah.
I'll get to that in a second. First, we will talk about, I guess just the movie itself. So yeah, both of them are, Social Network was written by Aaron Sorkin.
Correct.
Moneyball is Sorkin with Steven Zaillian, who did Schindler's List and the Dragon Tattoo remake.
Mm-hmm.
And they're both movies that I didn't take to right away.
Correct.
Because these movies have kind of made their own genre of riveting movies that are all dialogue and, I guess words and statistics.
Correct.
They're almost... The Social Network's almost a thriller.
Completely.
Just based on that. Moneyball is a much... Moneyball has its moments of, hopelessness, but it's a much lighter movie than The Social Network is. And it's got a lot more comedy in it, I think. There's those scenes where you have Billy in the room with the old guys, and they're trying to figure out what they're doing and what's, as Billy says, what the fuck they're talking about. His F-bomb. His PG-13 F-bomb that he had. And there's the great moment where he's talking about, it's like we're looking for Fabio. And then the scene just kind of goes, and then 2 minutes later, one of the guys just says, "Who's Fabio?"
Yeah, that was great.
But they both have that... The dialogue completely drives... I mean, they both have great performances too, but the performances are totally driven by the dialogue they have to say. That Sorkin dialogue that everybody loves. Everybody wants a Sorkin speech.
That's why the West Wing worked. That's why Sports Night worked.
He also did A Few Good Men.
Yeah.
He adapted A Few Good Men from his own play. So, let's talk about Brad Pitt. As far as his performance, some people think he should have won the Oscar. He did really well at the Critics Awards. He like wiped them up for a while there.
Yeah.
But the thing is his performance is not a surface performance at all.
No.
Like, there's still moments where I like watch it. I've seen Moneyball 4 times now. And it's just one of those that I don't really know how I would describe Pitt's performance. To say it's understated is like, oddly enough, on the surface.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't really know. You'd have to track down another reviewer or talk to somebody who really knows this movie really well, or like a huge, massive Pitt fan. I can't explain what makes Pitt so good in this movie, but I think that's something that really actually makes it even better. Is that I know he's doing something great here that I still haven't completely identified. But the way he carries this movie is just, with the charisma I don't think anybody else could have done.
Correct.
Now, this is the elephant in the room I was talking about. This has been referenced so many times by so many people in so many different contexts. I'm looking at you, this is the end. In case you've been hiding under a rock, or you just simply weren't aware because you don't follow things, yeah, you heard me correctly. When I was going through the Oscar nominations for Moneyball, I said Jonah Hill got nominated for supporting actor.
Yeah, he did.
And despite what people will tell you, it wasn't a surprise.
Nope.
He got in everywhere. I don't know why people thought he wouldn't make it when Oscar time came around. But, yeah. Well, there's that thing where when you see the Oscar announcement, when they say Jonah Hill, he came right after Kenneth Branagh, and you hear the crowd go, oh. Most people took that as people were like, oh shit, Jonah Hill got in.
Nope.
The thing was, and you'll notice they don't do the nominations announcements in alphabetical order anymore.
Smart move.
I think it was the fact that people in the room realized that they were going in alphabetical order, and when it jumped from Kenneth Branagh to Jonah Hill, that was the realization that Albert Brooks got snubbed.
That was the biggest issue that year.
So I think that's what that reaction was. It wasn't necessarily disdain at Jonah Hill.
No.
So, but apparently he took it as such too. He was I actually saw an interview with him where he was actually like extremely happy because he got an Oscar nomination, but then it was brought down because like everybody was just like, oh, that happened.
I remember
people got pissed at the newest Wolf of Wall Street trailer because you can now have the words Academy Award nominee Jonah Hill on
Yeah,
the
you
screen.
can.
Well, let me talk about this. I have defended Jonah Hill's nomination since it happened. And the funny thing was when we saw Moneyball back in September of 2011, we were talking about how good he was in it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think it stems from the fact that it was unlike anything he'd ever done before, which probably, yeah, there's probably a lot of weight in that argument.
Completely.
No pun intended. Because Jonah Hill's always losing a game.
It's like a yo-yo.
You couldn't find a tuxedo that switched sizes every 3 hours. The joke from the roast.
Yeah.
When we saw it and I saw him, we both just jokingly said, wow, I wonder if he could like get an Oscar nomination or something. And then we were just like, oh, it's September. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it happened easily. Here's the thing. I love Jonah Hill's performance. And I totally buy him getting nominated.
Yeah.
Here's a few things. First and foremost, while we're on the subject of both of these movies, it's the Sorkin dialogue. Getting a Sorkin speech is not easy.
No.
It is not an easy task to overcome. When you have to give a Sorkin speech, number one, just alone, his merit alone, that's a lot on your back. And secondly, to be able to deliver it perfectly is it's an almost impossible task, I would think. You have to have just the right people to do it, which is why all the Sorkin stuff is so carefully cast, like The West Wing and A Few Good Men and all that. And somehow Jonah Hill defeated the odds and became the fat kid from Superbad and the guy that wanted the goldfish boots in the 40-year-old version.
Yes.
To this actor that can flawlessly deliver Sorkin dialogue. One of the first scenes with him and Billy in the parking garage, when he's going through the whole thing, is this impossible paragraph.
Oh, yeah.
That he just... And the only thing he really had to go on before this movie was the Apatow movies. I'm wondering how he got chosen. I don't know if he auditioned or if Bennett Miller sought him out. I don't know, but it's just very... And there's always those little things. He does get to have comedic parts of his performance. The scene where, they're going to transfer the guy, I think. And he sends Peter Brandon to do it, his character. And it's this really hilariously awkward scene where he just goes in and has to tell the guy the news. And then he just leaves. There's the scene where they're making the calls and they're doing the fist pumping. That's like a legendary gif now. There's a couple of really funny scenes that I don't know why. This is definitely only me, I'm sure. I don't know why. Every time I've seen it, it's stuck out to me. And it's really nothing. I don't think it's supposed to be anything. I think it's just a shot in there to show what's happening. He's basically done what he needs to do for Billy, and he's printing the pages out. And he's going to take them to him. There's this shot that kills me every time, and I don't know why. It's just this quiet shot we get of him just sitting there looking at the printer, watching the stuff print out.
Just a little thing sometimes.
I don't know, but that just kills me.
Yeah.
And then there's the great scene when he's done all the analysis for the players. And he has a whole stack of them, and he gives them to Billy, and he's like, "What are these?" And he's like, "It's what you asked for." And he's like, "Yeah, I asked you for 3 players. How many are in this stack?" 47. Actually, 51. I really don't know why I lied just now. See, and it's those. Yeah, he doesn't have an emotional moment. He doesn't have a show moment. He doesn't even have a big Oscar moment per se, unless it's the parking garage where he has the paragraph. It's just the little things he does every time he's on the screen. He's clearly taking advantage. He clearly knows the blessing of being an actor, a young actor, with a Sorkin script.
Correct.
No, I'm totally dismissing Zalian here, but obviously him too. He's got a whole other resume, a civil actions on his resume too. So, which is a great horror movie. So yeah, I think I can see why people are quick to dismiss that nomination, because number 1, it's Jonah Hill, who's known for the Apatow movies, and number 2, he really is just there and delivers his dialogue, but I don't think people realize what that takes to be able to deliver that kind of dialogue.
It's very true.
And that's the reason why the industry took to him and nominated him. Among other reasons. There's just small things in there that really bring, He's a great character. That's the thing. Everybody complains, well, he didn't really do anything. Why would he get nominated? That he made the impact that he did for some people while on the surface doing nothing.
Yeah.
That says something.
Very much so. Oh, yeah.
Alright. Philip Seymour Hoffman isn't really here that much, but he is reuniting. You would expect it to be a big deal because Bennett Miller is the director of Moneyball, and he also did Capote.
Yep.
Which got Philip Seymour Hoffman the Oscar among every accolade ever.
Yeah.
But he's kind of just there. Apparently, the guy that he plays was actually upset because I don't remember if I have this the other way around or not because I don't follow it, but it's the movie kind of portrays him as the I don't want to do that guy.
Mm.
But apparently in real life he was actually a supporter of what Billy Bean was doing. But the movie didn't portray him as such, so I guess he was a little upset by that.
Yeah.
But he's Philip Seymour Hoffman, so he does, even when he's on screen doing nothing, he does something to make his presence known. Just being Philip Seymour Hoffman is more than enough. Just him standing there in the corner with his arms folded. That's all he needs to do, as long as he's Philip Seymour Hoffman. In my eyes, anyway. And you also have, like, there's Robin Wright and Spike Jonze. I think, yeah, it's Spike Jonze. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is. Okay. Yeah, I want to make sure I have that right. As his daughter's, his ex-wife and her new husband, who are mainly have custody of their daughter. And he has the tender moments with his daughter of the song and all that. And the guitar shop and all that. Yeah. So, I didn't really take to Moneyball the way a lot of people did. But I do, like I said, I've seen it 4 times, and I do like watching it. I love the way it just kind of rolls along like a great Sorkin script does.
Yeah.
And Zalian, I won't forget you. And yeah, like we were saying, The Descendants actually ended up winning Adapted Screenplay, but this was the expected winner.
Oh, yeah.
So, it was this, Hugo, and The Descendants.
And any of them could have legitimately won.
Yeah. Hugo basically riding the coattails of the fact that the movie won a lot, but the main competitors were this and The Descendants. Clooney versus Pitt. Which was the actor race, too. And they both lost to Jean, so whatever.
Everyone lost to Jean that year.
There's a really great scene at the end where they talk about when Jonah Hill shows him that footage of the guy that hit the ball, and then he ran, and then I guess I can't remember exactly what the scenario was now. He basically tried to run, but then he ended up missing the base or something and thought he was out, and he was like humiliated. And then he realized they were laughing at him. But the reason they were laughing at him was because he hit it over the fence. And he didn't realize it. Which is like the movie's that's like its big emotional moment before it ends.
Yeah.
And I do like the fact it kind of goes the We Are Marshall route. Where obviously you can't escape this because it's a real story, but it manages to be inspirational while the main character basically failed.
Yeah.
Which is a very quite an accomplishment. So yeah, I'm sure there's people who will take the Moneyball more than I did, especially since I'm not like, really into sports. I mean, sports movies are a different thing, but
yeah, I don't like sports either. I love sports movies though.
One of the times I saw Moneyball was with my brother, who knew like all of this. So it'll be really enjoyable for those people, I imagine. Like, he was able to point out, recognizing faces and remembering certain events and all that. So I think those people will get a lot more out of it. And as somebody who doesn't like sports at all, I've apparently proven that you still can anyway, so...
Yeah, I love sports movies and I hate sports.
So yeah, Moneyball's got a lot to love, but I'm sure there's somebody that could probably elaborate on why it's great better than I can, because I don't necessarily see everything great that everybody sees. Like I said, I'm still fucking dissecting Pitt's performance.
That says something right there.
Okay. Now it's time for The Social Network. Which won 3 Oscars. Sorkin won Adapted Screenplay, it won Editing, and Trent Reznor won for the score.
Don't forget Atticus Ross.
Oh yeah, of course. He's the Zalian to Reznor's Sorkin.
He is.
And we had nominations for Picture, Director, Actor for Jesse Eisenberg. And it got a weird cinematography nomination.
Yeah.
Actually, maybe not so weird. There's plenty of love. Did I miss anything? Andrew Garfield was expected to get in, but I was the only person that predicted he wouldn't get in, and I was right, of course. Sorry. However, it was going to win Picture.
Yeah.
It was supposed to. And Fincher had cleaned up. Fincher is the only director in the history of the world to win all 4 big critics awards. The closest behind him was Spielberg, won 3 out of 4 for Schindler's List.
How many did Affleck win?
The critic, Bigelow took a lot of those. So, this movie was really riding high for a long time, and I think that may have been what did it in. This movie had the opposite effect on me that it did for everybody else, basically. We saw October 1st, 2010 is when it came out.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw it, and I was like, well, okay. And then we went again, and it was like, and then I kept watching it because I couldn't get what people saw in it. Especially after it started winning everything in sight.
Yes.
Before the King's Speech came in and bitch slapped it.
Yeah.
But the King's Speech is fine. That's not badmouth or anything.
We'll probably focus on it eventually down the road.
Well, after about 10 or 15 times of seeing The Social Network, I finally got it. And it's one of the best movies of, like, the decade.
Correct.
And I don't mean 2010 and forward. I mean from now to 10 years ago. That decade.
Mm-hmm.
And what Fincher did with this, what's so amazing about The Social Network and what it does. I've mentioned this in one review before, but I can't remember which one it was. But now that we're actually talking about The Social Network, I can say it again, and it has more context. What makes The Social Network so amazing is you go to a movie, okay, just any movie, it doesn't matter which one, or any genre, and the movie goes, and it'll have these big parts. Like, whether it be a big comedic moment, a big dramatic moment, a big action scene, a big whatever. Just a scene that really hooks you. And then when you go home and you tell your friends to see it, you say, oh man, you gotta see it. And I can't wait for you to see this scene, and I can't wait for you to see this scene, and stuff like that.
Mm.
There's like those 3 or 4 scenes that really stand out. 3 or 4 might be pushing it, maybe 2 or 3. The Social Network is totally, completely compiled of standout scenes.
Oh, yeah.
There is one memorable scene, literally one right after the other, for 2 straight hours. It is incredible.
It really is.
You're like, okay, there's, the very first scene with him and Rooney Mara is like 8 minutes long. And reportedly they did 99 takes of it. That's Fincher, of course.
Yeah.
Fincher is the modern day Kubrick when it comes to takes. And everybody loves that. Then there's this great, the edit, like, okay, editing sometimes can be subtle and sometimes editing can be really apparent. The Social Network's editing is both.
Yeah.
It makes itself apparent, but the scenes are so just, oh my god. Just how well compiled this whole segment is, where you have this party, and then you have him creating the face mash, and then you have people, while the party is going on, discovering face mash, and it starts to take off overnight. Just this whole segment is just, and then the movie just keeps going into greatness. We're eventually introduced to the Winklevoss twins, who are both played by Armie Hammer. One of them is Armie Hammer completely, the other is Josh Pence with Armie Hammer's head on him.
Mm-hmm.
Through very well done special effects. I couldn't think of a better word for well done. It just
Elaborate?
I was looking for a complimentary word.
Okay.
And their little henchman, Max Minghella, who's also really great in this.
Yeah.
And Armie Hammer. The great thing. Oh my god, Armie Hammer. That's what pissed me off. To be totally honest, we'll get to Timberlake in a second, but Garfield is really good in this. I don't want to take anything away from Garfield. He's really good in this. But I don't know why he was getting all the attention when I think Timberlake and especially Armie Hammer were higher on the totem pole.
Yeah.
Because like I said, we'll get into Timberlake in a second, but let's talk about Armie Hammer for just a second, okay?
Not a problem.
You have Cameron and you have Tyler. Okay. And they're clearly both Armie Hammer, as we see them.
Yeah.
And he manages to make, whether it's a haircut or whether it's the way they behave or something, Armie Hammer is playing these 2 twins, who both obviously are him, but the way he plays them so meticulous and so well, you can tell them apart. That is amazing.
Yeah, no lie.
That is just, like, I don't know how he got... I would bet anything, his SAG nomination for J. Edgar is probably saying, you were so fucking amazing in The Social Network, but we couldn't nominate you last year because there was too much room. That is just... I don't even know how one begins to do that, but good God. And I know, I don't want to bash him for what he's done lately, but somebody who was able to make Cameron and Tyler Winklevoss two separate characters should not be doing movies like Mirror Mirror and The Lone Ranger.
Yeah.
Somebody give him something. Even in J. Edgar, he's great. Give him another J. Edgar if you have to.
It would be nice.
But give the guy something to really work with.
Because he proved he has the chops to go.
Yeah. Because unfortunately, with the Lone Ranger's budget, and just the kind of movie that it wasn't going to do very well.
No.
And everybody was going to point the finger at him.
Oh, yeah.
Even though they barely put his name on it. This should not be the way he's going. He should be on much greater things. I mean, he was born into wealth, if I remember correctly. Or if I read correctly. So he's well off no matter what. But acting is definitely his thing. So people really need to start looking into him and giving him parts he really could use. Because he really needs to be something big. It's very unfortunate the Lone Ranger didn't work out for him, but...
He wasn't bad in the movie. It's just the movie was doomed from the start.
Yeah.
He wasn't bad in Mirror Mirror. It's just the movie was doomed from the start.
Yeah. But yeah, he needs to be so much bigger than he is.
I totally agree with that.
So, alright, let's go into Timberlake now. Timberlake is great here as well. What's great here is he was the perfect casting.
Completely
Not only
agree.
apparently he knew Sean Fanning before anything else. I was making sure I had his name right. I had to think about it for a second.
Like, I called him Sean Parker.
Parker.
Because I did the same thing.
Fanning's the other guy.
On video.
Yeah. Yes, he is Sean Parker. I got it. Okay. Yeah. I sensed that I had the other name, but...
That's why you stopped yourself.
Timberlake is Sean Parker.
Yes.
And he has this... He basically plays him exactly where you know his motives, but you sense that he is this... You can see his motives from a mile away, but you can totally sympathize for Mark for falling under his spell.
Yeah, of course.
The scene, one of my favorite scenes of the movie, probably sometimes what day you're asking me what my favorite scene of The Social Network is, if you just happen to be doing such a weird thing. Just approach me in the park one day and say, hey, what's your favorite scene of The Social Network? I'll say, you know what, today I'm going to choose the same.
I'm going to start doing that in 2014.
The scene that Andrew Garfield's character, Eduardo Saverin, calls the Sean-a-thon, where they meet Sean for the first time in this restaurant, and he basically charms them through a montage of ordering drinks and really expensive food. And he basically orders for them because he knows exactly what's good and exactly what's within price range, and just does all of this like it's a daily routine. And then they slow down for the scene where they finally talk about the website. We don't hear any of the bullshit talk. It's Eduardo narrating over this amazing montage.
Yeah.
You've got everything it won an Oscar for thrives in this scene, because you have the dialogue with Eduardo's narration, you have Reznor and Atticus Ross's score, and you have the editing of the montage, all going at the same time. That's a whole lot of gold happening in this scene.
Completely.
Okay. And then at the end, when he starts to, there's that great moment where his real side really comes out, where you realize what he is underneath and what he is on the outside, because he spends the whole movie basically condescending Eduardo. Mm-hmm. and basically telling him to get out of the building after he got his percentile lowered, which is a mind-blowing scene in itself. And then Sean's doing the tough guy, and he's trying, get him out of here, and he's basically playing security guard. And then Eduardo goes to, fake punch him, and he, ducks for cover.
Yeah.
And then, oh shit, Eduardo has a great line there, and I can't remember what it is. It's been a while since I saw the movie. It's been about a year since I watched it last, I think. But he has a really... Oh shit, I almost had it else. It's a really great line. When you hear it, you'll know it. We haven't talked about Jesse Eisenberg yet.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Jesse Eisenberg is beyond adjectives in this movie.
Agreed.
We talked about you have to be great in order to deliver the Sorkin dialogue the way it's supposed to be delivered.
Correct.
I think Jesse Eisenberg came out of the womb with Sorkin dialogue inscribed in his head already. That is the only explanation for this performance. He can be funny, he can be meek, he can be scary, he can be somewhat threatening in a way. Not physically, but in a business way. He's condescending, he's a prick. He's sympathetic.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is in here. And there are the one scene that really comes to mind is the scene where he's on the phone with Eduardo when Eduardo's trying to put the fire out. And it's after Eduardo's frozen the bank account. And Mark calls him and goes on a tirade. And we keep cutting back and forth from the building fire to Mark going on this tirade over the phone. And we can only hear half of we can only hear him when it cuts back to him.
Yeah.
But the one about when one domino goes, the other dominoes go, and all that. So yeah, that was really very much an Oscar nomination, well deserved. And it's a shame that he went on to a movie like Now You See Me. He needs to you can't trap him in roles that are Mark Zuckerberg for the rest of his life.
No.
But just the way, I don't know, this is something, no offense to the guy, this is something Michael Cera never could have done. And of course Andrew Garfield is great. I kind of shunned him there to talk about Armie Hammer and Timberlake, but that one's, obviously, he's good through the whole movie, but obviously everybody's go-to is that one scene. Where he smashes the laptop and says, he's kind of talking about how Sean is into the rich lifestyle.
Yeah. And
then he's talking about, he's screaming at them because Sean's trying to shut him out and say, you're not a part of Facebook, you're not one of us. And Eduardo just belts out, sorry, my Prada's at the cleaners along with my hoodie and my fuck you flip-flops, you pretentious douchebag. And then his delivery of, obviously, he's gotten down to, everybody has, a certain percentile of what they get out of Facebook. Mm. And his was with theirs. And then we're going through the lawyer speech. And you can feel your heart sink when Eduardo says this. You can imagine how he felt when he first heard the news. Because they have, there's, a 7% and stuff like that. And they're saying how much was so-and-so's percent lowered, and it wasn't. Sean's wasn't lowered. Mark's wasn't lowered. Everybody else, nobody's was lowered. And then when they ask what Eduardo's percent was lowered to, it's 0.03. And then his delivery of, you better lawyer up, asshole, because I'm not just coming back for mine, I'm coming back for everything. And then he's escorted out by security.
Yes.
And then there's that great moment I was talking about earlier where Sean goes to give him the check. And then he says, it's in the bank account you froze. And then there's just so many other great scenes that are they're all Fincher. Like the, you think it's pointless, But I think it's kind of to show that the Winklevosses are off their game. The Winklevi are off their game because of the whole Mark situation.
Yeah.
The rowing scene, where it's basically, once again, it's the editing, it's the score, and it's just Fincher. And it's just this amazing scene where Reznor does In the Hall of the Mountain King.
Yes.
To this race. It's like, I don't know what this scene is doing here, but I'm so glad it's here. And in this big scene where they're in a club with Sean, and he's basically giving his backstory, and you actually can barely hear. It's actually like being in a club. He's having to yell, and you can barely hear him. Just so many. The scene with the Winklevi and the the dean with the oops, I broke his 300-year-old door.
Yeah, that was funny.
Oh my god, the best line ever of when they're talking about Max Miguel's talking about taking out Mark, and they're saying we need these people, and then he says, no, we don't need those people. We can do it ourselves. I'm 6'5", 220 pounds, and there's two of me. That is just one of the best lines ever.
And in the straightest way to deliver a line of dialogue ever.
Oh man, Army Hammer,
get work, please.
Get work, get awards, get everything you deserve.
Someday.
He's got the money, he's got the looks. The only thing he doesn't have is people giving him the parts he deserves.
I'm telling you, Army Hammer would have made a good Bruce Wayne. On this channel, I did champion Affleck, and I still will. But when it comes down to it, Army Hammer could have been a great choice for Batman as well. And I said that on the video, too. So
yeah, I could talk about the social network all day.
You can. It's no lie. We've had these conversations before.
I just...
And Jesse Eisenberg, too. It's just like, I mean, I was not aware of his existence until you showed me The Squid and the Whale.
The Village. Cursed.
I hate The Village, though.
I love that he actually outed in that round table that he didn't want to do Cursed. He said his dad talked him into it or something, which is funny because he said, I'm not going to say the name, to protect the innocent. But
yeah.
There's this horror movie I really didn't want to do. It was awful. I didn't want to do it. If you look at his filmography, the only horror movie there is Cursed. So that's what it had to be. Unless he was talking about The Village, I don't know.
But I was when Colin Firth was winning everything under the sun, I was the one that was still saying that Eisenberg could still pull out the last minute victory. And it could have happened. But at the end, it became way too much of a surge for the King's Speech.
You had Franco in there, too.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
that was a nice year. It was a really nice year.
2010's a great year.
An excellent year. And that was a year we were actually pretty more covered than I think we've ever been. I believe 2010 was the one that we were fully covered on everything.
That was 2009.
I thought it was 2010.
So
years are running together. You guys know that.
So, between The Social Network and Moneyball, I choose Moneyball. I'm kidding.
I know you
Of course, I would take The Social Network any day of the week. I take The Social Network almost anything in the past few years. So, with the exception of maybe Killer Joe and Django.
Ooh, Social Network versus Django would be an interesting one.
If you look at the best movies of the past 10 years, it goes Django, Killer Joe, The Social Network. And I see 300 movies a year.
Yeah, that's not a lie.
So, if what that tells you.
Yeah.
So, roughly, that's 900 movies since 2012. Technically, okay, add 300 more to that. Okay, so it's 1,200 movies. If you want the three best out of roughly 1,200 movies, I would give you those two and The Social Network.
Wow. That is a glowing recommendation.
So Moneyball didn't really stand a chance here, but Moneyball is very good. Let's be nice to Moneyball.
Pet the DVD case.
There are people out there that don't like The Social Network. They probably like Moneyball, so it's hard to say.
They were crowd pleasers.
Moneyball was very much compared to it when it came out. Because obviously, they got Sorkin, and they got the same... It's like the procedural kind of thing. The way they got to what they were doing technologically and all that.
Mm.
So, that's it for that one.
Final Oscar-themed final verses of 2013. We've had a lot of really interesting battles, and we're going to have a lot more in 2014. As a matter of fact, I actually have a list that has a lot of verses already planned for next year, so we got a lot of stuff on and I know you cringe at this, but next week should be a really entertaining one too. We're gonna do a little music themed versus next week. So, AJ, any
That's also Oscar
Yeah,
related.
we're still in Oscar versus for January, and then February we go into love theme, and then we don't have another theme until October when we go into horror themed or scary themed verses, I called it last year. So, AJ, any parting words for verses for 2013?
My voice is tired, so that's it.